Hey, welcome to my first video blog. My name's Peter James, and today I just want to walk you through my typical software setup that I would use on a Sunday morning or a Sunday night at Hillsong Church. So yeah, let's get started. Actually, before I do, on a side note, I'm going to be doing a lot more of these videos, so if you want to be notified when I've got a new video up or a new blog post, just go to my Facebook page at Peter James Productions. Just subscribe to that, and then every time I post something on that, like a new blog or something, it'll come up in your newsfeed and you can see that I've posted a new blog. You can also go to peterjamesproductions.com, and there you can subscribe for the newsletter, and I'll also send you new news about my website, blogs, new products, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, let's get into it. Cool. First of all, I'll just show you my specs, my computer specs about this Mac. Cool. As you can see, I'm running 16 gig of RAM here. I actually purchased that separate from buying my Apple computer because it worked out a lot cheaper if I bought it separately and then installed it myself, so that's what I've done there. You can also probably see that I'm running MainStage 2 and not MainStage 3. The only reason being because I've got a few bits of software that are still 32-bit plugins. They're not yet 64, and MainStage 3 doesn't support the bridging program, the 64-bit bridging program, so that's why I'm still running MainStage 2. Cool. Let's show you the buffer settings, preferences. Cool. As you can see, I'm running a sample rate of 44,100. When I am recording, I'll usually go to 48, just because it's a bit higher quality, but I want to save CPU usage and not put as much stress on my CPU when running live, and you honestly won't hear the difference in a band situation there. I'm running this at 128, safety buffer on. I like to run it as low as I can. The lower number you use, obviously, is a lower buffer setting. The higher you use, the higher latency there is, so it's harder to get a good feel for what you're playing. But 128 seems to work really well with the computer I'm running and the software I'm trying to run at the same time. Cool. I'll show you a little trick that I like to do. I like to open Logic at the same time, but I'll run Logic at a higher buffer setting. I'm actually running it at 1024 because I'm trying to record this video using ScreenFlow. Obviously, if you're trying to record something at the same time, it's going to use more CPU, so that's why I've left it at 1024, but I'd usually have it at 512. There might be a few audio pops during some of these examples. It's not because of my I've got the wrong buffer settings. It's probably because I'm trying to record this at the same time, so just a heads up on that. The reason why I do Logic at a higher buffer setting and run MainStage is because I like to have a high buffer setting for things like strings or combination patches. So as you can see, I'm running a few channel strips here. I've got an empty channel strip that I use when I don't want any audio to come out, and I've got a combination. These channel strips are actually linked together. This one here and these three over here are linked via the environment. So if I go to Window, Environment, you can actually draw cables in and link any or all of the channel strips inside there. So what this means is every time I play a note with this channel strip selected, it will also play all the other ones that I've linked up. What I've got in the first channel strip, this is a big strings patch that I like to use. I'm using Sable strings, cellos and violins. Before I go out of that, I've mapped the dynamics to my mod wheel, so it crossfades between lower and higher dynamic samples. I also use Miroslav as part of my string combination patch, and I use that because it's a bigger sounding string section, whereas Miroslav's a really small, more like a chamber type string section. So I'll show you quickly that in action. I've also sent these to separate buses, so I've sent the Sable to one bus and all these Miroslav patches to a second one, so I can easily bring up or down the volume or mute them or whatever I want to do independently. So this is soloing just the Sable strings. few audio pops in there like I was expecting, but yeah, when I'm running it live and not recording, those are gone. Here's the same kind of thing with just the Miroslav stuff. Okay, let's put them in combination. Yeah, so that's pretty much my massive string patch. It works when I'm doing it live, not so well when I'm recording. Cool. Let's go back to MainStage. Cool. Okay, so as you can see in the middle of my screen, I've got the Setlist that I used a couple of weeks ago actually at Hillsong Church Sunday AM service. Alive in the key of E, Christ is enough in B, Thank you Jesus D, Forever Reign D. And then at the end we did Cornerstone in C. I've also put Love So Deep because I want to show you a patch that I'm working on for that as well. One thing to note, all the patches that I have used over the past 5-6 years I've included in Pete's patches on my website. Now I don't always use the exact sound I use on an album live today. I like to mix it up, I like to try new things, I like to be creative. So yeah, if you're wondering, I don't always use the exact same sound for every song that you hear recorded on albums. Cool, let's get into it. So Alive, I used from Pete's patches the Zion Multi. You can combine them all inside Omnisphere if you want to, or you can put them on separate channel strips. Now I put them on separate channel strips just because it's easier in real time to adjust the volumes, do any panning things I might want to do, add extra effects or experiment with extra effects, that kind of thing. So that's why I put them on separate channel strips here. I've also mapped every single patch pretty much in this set here. I've mapped the low pass filter. Whoops, shouldn't have done that. Now this is my typical pad, I'll show you in here. It's in the main menu. Yep, so here I like to map the low pass filter to my mod wheel. As you can see, when I'm moving the mod wheel up and down, it's also moving the low pass filter. Reason why I do that is instead of using volume to build dynamics in a piece of music or church song, I like to use a low pass filter. The reason being, it still keeps the lows in, and as you move it up, it slowly brings the high frequencies of the patch in. This works a lot better than volume. I'll give you an example. Let's say there's an MC on stage and he's talking or she's talking, and I want to do something behind them. I'll have the low pass filter right down, and see, you can still hear my voice. It's not cutting into the frequencies that of a typical speaking voice. Whereas if I had the low pass filter right up, you would hardly be able to hear. What I'm saying. See what I'm getting at? And during a song, I'll use this to build dynamics. So instead of moving my volume up and down, I'll use my low pass filter to build. Cool, so I've done that typically in every single patch here, pretty much. Okay, this is my typical pad that I'll use most of the time in church. It was created from big old Oberheim. I've actually spelled that wrong, awesome. It's actually taken from an original Omnisphere patch that I've edited. I've taken the swell out. I've just changed the attack and release and included it in the patches that are on my website. So that's the typical pad that I normally use. I'm also just going to go through over here what all these other channel strips are. So This one here, I've actually got, it's actually a, how do I explain it? It's kind of an experimental bus that I try different effects and stuff on. So as you can see, that's muted because I don't want to use any of them. But I'm always looking at new things, new ways of doing things, new effects, that kind of thing. So that's my experimental bus. On this bus over here, I've actually got a Lexicon C6 reverb. I really like this reverb, and I used it a lot on the Zion album especially. It's got a setting that has a lot of chorus on it, and this gives you kind of a seasick type reverb, modulating reverb effect. So what I did in Omnisphere for my patches is I emulated this reverb and included it in the Pete's patches. This reverb, when I bought it, came in a pack and cost me almost $1,500 US. It's come down in price. I think it's around about $600 US at the moment if you want to get the Lexicon PCM bundle. But I wanted to make a really good replica of that for really cheap and just include it in my patches. So if anyone wanted that sound that I got on the Zion album, that reverb sound, you could get it inside there. I might actually do an A/B test showing you how close it actually is to this reverb in another video, but for now I'm just showing you what I use. The reason why I'm not using my version is because I sometimes like to use the Lexicon or this reverb on other channel strips. So I can obviously use this Lexicon reverb on a piano, whereas if it's included in Omnisphere, I'll only be able to use that Zion reverb on Omnisphere sounds. So that's the reasoning behind using the Lexicon version. Cool. If you go across even further, you'll see my output. Apologies for all the names. I haven't cleaned up all the names, so when I'm selecting excuse me, certain patches, things like that, you might wonder what these names are, but that's just because I've saved a channel strip as that name and then added it in. Okay, so what I've done here, I've got the gain structure plugin here. I've reduced it by 6 dB because every single patch, especially if I'm using multiple patches like I do with the Zion Multi, the gain can get a little bit too high when you're combining all the patches. So I like to bring that down 6 dB to give me a bit of headroom. This is a really nice delay from PSP Audio. This is the old version 84, but they've got a new one 85. That's based off a Lexicon delay unit. So I use that on Forever Rain and songs like that. I'll show you that a little bit later. This is a Waves bus compressor. I only have it. I have it really light settings with a threshold right up, so it's hardly moving at all, but it does kind of glue the sound together and just make it stand out a little bit more. I'll show you that actually when I'm playing this patch. As you can see, it's only tickling the compressor, as I like to say. It's hardly moving at all, but it does add a little bit more audio compression and quality to your mix. And then I really like this plugin. It's actually from Oxford Plugins. It's hard to explain exactly what it does, but it adds harmonics, kind of like a really subtle tube effect, and it brings up the volume in your patch or sounds or whatever you're putting through it, obviously. So what I might do is actually play a chord and see if you can hear the difference as I bring in all these patches, software plugins, sorry. So you can hear subtle differences. Obviously that's a pad sound. You'll notice it differently when I put pianos and other things through it. But that's my typical output kind of software stack that I like to use. And so I run everything through that. Okay, let's move on to, let's show you this pad. I really like this pad at the moment. Again, it's from Pete's Patches, I kind of edited Eternal Lap Steel and got it sounding the exact way that I wanted it to sound. Once again, I mapped this to the mod wheel, but it gives a really kind of hollow pad sound. It leaves a lot of room for other things to be put in there sonically. So I'll just show you that. On this patch, I also tried a little bit of Valhalla reverb, very similar to the one that's included in Pete's Patches. It's also similar to the Lexicon one, but I'm always trying new plugins and stuff, so I chucked this one on because it sounds really nice as well. I also like to have a channel strip EQ, especially for live settings, if I want to make a quick adjustment to the EQ. In this I just dipped out a little bit of the muddy low mids, so without it would sound like this. And with it, see how it just cleans up the sound. Now that all depends on where I'm using it and why I'm using it and what combination of sounds I'm using it with, whether I want it to be a little bit cleaner on the bottom end or a little bit fuller on the bottom end. But for this church service I wanted it a bit cleaner, so that's what I did. I just want to show you the plugins that I use for Forever Rain. I've got a combination set here. I'm using Scarby's CEP, that's Road Samples, mixed with my version of Eternal Lap Steel from Omnisphere. So I'll just go down the list and show you quickly what's on the channel strip. I always like experimenting, like I said, and trying different plugins. So on this one I've got Rhodes preamp sim on and like a guitar amp simulation. It's simulating an amp there with a little bit of spring reverb. I've got Waves SSL channel strip. I've boosted the tops a little bit, taken a bit of the muddiness out of it and got a little bit of compression. PSP, same guys that make that Lexicon delay simulated thing I showed you. That's on the bus. They also make a saturation plugin for distortion or subtle overdrive. I put a little bit of that on it. This does a similar thing. I really like using that as well. That's from Sound Toys. I've got this which isn't turned on at the moment, but I like to turn it on. That's if I want a little bit more overdrive. SPL twin tube. It's obviously a stereo tube processor for more overdrive and adding extra harmonics. It's really nice. And at the end of the chain I'm trying out that Valhalla Vintage Verb, which is similar to the Lexicon, similar to the Zion reverb as well. So I'm trying that out at the moment. Yeah, and when I was playing this patch I actually turned on that PSP 84 and that's how you get the delay effect for it. Now you can hear it, the pad coming in as I move the mod wheel up. I had the choice this weekend of just putting the Rhodes through the PSP plugin, which is why you can see here it's blanked out. That was my original plan, but then I thought I'll try putting the pad through it as well, and it actually gave a really nice overdrive effect to the pad. So that's my reasoning behind putting the PSP over everything, not just the delay, and I'll show you that. So it's kind of nice having that going through the delay and overdrive. because what this plugin actually does is you can put overdrive only on the delay, and that's what you're hearing. As it delayed, it was overdriving the delay. It also simulates putting like a spring or plate, I've got a spring at the moment, reverb on just the delay. So that's what you're hearing there with that plugin. Cool. All these extras down here, they're kind of ones that I might be experimenting with or I might use in a service, and I like to keep them all there. Like, I'll just show you an example of some of the things. Like, here's another Rhodes version, but it's heavily distorted. So I'm putting a limiter on and I'm putting it through this crazy distortion plugin, and you get this kind of thing with it. Let's turn off the PSP so you can hear it better. And you can also hear, I'm putting a lot of these patches through that Lexicon reverb, which is really nice. You can hear it after the final release. I've done the same with these patches. Again, they're from Pete's Patches, ones that I've edited for, I think this one was Beneath the Waters, but I've been experimenting with some other plugins here to give a little bit more overdrive and stuff to the plugin. And here's another kind of version. I think this one's got less overdrive. Or maybe the same amount. But anyway, that's just my experimental stuff down here that I'm working on. Yeah, pretty sure that's it. Obviously, you're probably going to have a lot more questions and a lot more things that you're wondering why I didn't cover that in this video, but that's why this is one of many videos. So I just wanted to do a quick introduction to kind of how I set everything up, how I use Logic and MainStage in combination, that kind of thing. So stay tuned for more. But before I go, I'll probably just show you this last patch, which I really like. Okay, this is a combination of Eternal Lap Steel. It's also a combination of Big and Clicky Bass from Trillion. Again, all these are in Pete's Patches. I keep saying that, you probably like shut up, but anyway, just explaining that's where they came from originally. Yeah, so what I've done here, as you can see down here, the bass is only in the bottom octave, and the pad is over the whole keyboard. I can also then bring in strings. So this is my concept patch for Love So Deep, Young and Free song. So someone will obviously be playing the piano. This is what I'll do if I wasn't playing the piano and covering pads and that kind of thing.